iOS 11 for the iPad, and specifically for the iPad Pro, is a pretty drastic change from what we've seen on the iPad before. It really allows for a lot more creativity and personalization when we're looking at how to use our iPad, especially in terms of productivity. So I really think that iOS 11 has helped more than it has hurt, even though it is quite buggy at the moment, more so for the iPhone than for the iPad. But I really do think that it has really made the iPad a more productive device, especially for students. So, in college students specifically, because I'm a college student, and I can say that iOS 11 has definitely helped a lot more. But it's not perfect. There are some things that I do miss from iOS 10, so let's just get right into it and see exactly how iOS 11 operates on the iPad Pro. So right now I have my 10.5-inch iPad Pro in front of me, and instead of giving you all the new features of iOS 11 that you can do on the iPad Pro, I'm really targeting this more to just be specific for using it for school and for productivity mainly. So I won't be emphasizing all the features that iOS 11 has to offer, even though there are quite a few, especially the subtle features that I just don't use on a regular basis. So this is more, I think, of a real-life application of how iOS 11 has benefited me and could hopefully benefit you too as well if you have not updated already. So first of all, so as a college student, the main reason why, I've said this before, but the main reason that I really wanted an iPad Pro even to begin with is because of the excellent note-taking experience. So with an excellent note-taking hardware, you have the Apple Pencil, you can't see it, but I'm holding it right now, and the iPad Pro, and I also got the Smart Keyboard, which I love. I loved way more than I ever thought I would actually enjoy. I thought I would hate it, but I actually enjoy it quite a bit. But with good hardware, you also need good software, and in the iPad and with iOS, that for me takes the form of Notability. So I've mentioned Notability in the past. I've done a whole bunch of videos on Notability, or maybe just a couple, but I feel like I mentioned it a lot. But it really is, I think, the best note-taking experience that I have ever had, really. And especially when the Pro Motion display on the 10.5-inch iPad Pro, the handwriting on the iPad is really seamless and it has very little lag. So it's really, really nice. So let's just look into what I've been doing. So I just have a couple of my courses on the left that you can see, and I'll actually pull up. So this is Psych, and I type these notes. But I usually handwrite my notes. So if we look at something like calculus, well, I show calculus a lot. Let's look at chemistry instead. So if we look down here, we'll just look at lecture 7, for example. So right, I'm writing, taking notes. I have everything laid out in front of me, and the first thing that you might encounter when you're taking notes or you're doing something on your iPad is multitasking. So multitasking was great in iOS 10. It wasn't perfect, but it was really useful, and it was a really new feature for iOS. So if we take a look here, if you want to multitask on the iPad Pro with iOS 11, I think the easiest thing to do is to just pull up the dock. So if you just swipe up from the bottom a little bit, you get your dock. So this is really, really cool to have in iOS 11. We've seen the dock before, of course, in Mac OS, previously OS 10, and it's a great feature, and I think it's a perfect idea to implement for them to have brought the dock over to iOS 11 for the iPad. So you can customize the dock any way you want. So before we get into anything, let me just show you how you can customize that. So right now, I have, starting from left to right, I have Safari here, then I have the Mail app, then Settings, then Messages and Files, and Notability. And then if you want to add something to the dock, all you have to do is, so let's say if I want to add Good Notes to my dock, here it is, you just hold it, slide out, and then position it in. So this is typically when you hold an app, it wiggles and wiggles around, and then X comes up. But if you want to do that, you actually have to hold it down for a little bit longer, and then the X will come up if you want to delete the app. And if I want to remove it from the dock, I can just put it back in the folder that I had it in before. And there it goes. And then to the right, where you see Contacts in the App Store, you have Contacts here. the App Store here, and then Facebook, of course, here. Those are your recently used apps. And I believe there is a setting where you can prevent the dock from putting your recently used apps on the right side of the bar. But I like it a lot. I think it's really useful, and it makes multitasking, I think, a lot easier. So if we go back to Notability, let me actually pull up another, let me actually go back to Psych. So I usually handwrite my notes, but in this case I think in terms of Psych and typing, it'll make more sense in a little bit. But say I'm typing my notes here, and I get a message from someone. So I'm just going to send myself a message here from my phone. Okay, well I haven't seemed to receive the message, but just pretend that oh, maybe it's coming now. There it is. Here it is. Okay, so I actually, I clicked on messages on accident, but here you can see that I pulled up the messages on top of my Notability app. So I was working on Notability, now I have this floating window essentially on top of whatever I was working on. So let me just show you how that happened again, because I think that happened kind of fast and it was not what I was intending to happen. But so we can just swipe that on the side to get rid of it. So if you swipe up from the dock and then you just drag an app from the dock here, it comes up. And then you can move this around anywhere you want. And then if you want it to go into split view, and you can use the app here as well. So like it's fully functional. It's not just to look at. You can actually type, hey, back. Just having a conversation with myself over and over again. But you can see that it just pulls up next to your whatever app you were using before, and it's really seamless. So I can move this one and move this one, just depending on which one I touch. Do you see that? It's a really nice experience. So sometimes when people are texting me and I just kind of want to see if it's like a long string of messages, I just want to glance over it, I just pull it up on the side and I can still take notes. Obviously it's not optimal when you're trying to pay attention in class, but it does happen, especially in the day and age we live. Like, you need to sometimes keep track, and sometimes those messages are important. They're not necessarily just social messages. Sometimes I'm having very important conversations with myself, as you can see. If you want it to keep it into put your messages window into split view, all you have to do is click on this, or hold this bar all the way at the top above where it says Mr. And then you just have to, oops, I didn't mean to do that. All you have to do is swipe down from there. And see, now it's going to try to put it into a split view. So you just let it do that. And now this is what we are more familiar with in iOS 10. And you can adjust the window sizes. I don't know if Apple would like that I'm calling these windows, but that's just, I think, the easiest way to describe them. They're two separate windows essentially, and they're split right down the middle. So this is obviously what we had in iOS 10. It's still really useful, but the fact that you get a floating window, I think, is the most useful. And then you can even switch places here. I'm not sure if you could do this in iOS 10 or not, but I just found this out yesterday for iOS 11, and that's really cool that you can do that. And if I want to just stay on Notability, all I have to do is swipe the messages all the way over. And there you go. Now I'm back to Notability. So that is really cool. And it's basically, I think swiping up from the dock is a lot easier than having to swipe from the right before and then scroll through all the potential apps that you could do. Now the problem that arises from this, though, is what if the app you want to multitask with isn't on the dock? So this is, I don't know why Apple didn't advertise this more, because like obviously all the apps you can multitask with, I guess they assume that all the apps you do want to multitask with will be on the dock. But for me, that's not necessarily the case. So that was really frustrating that they didn't give a clear explanation of how to do that in like their help videos that they have on their website. So I did a little bit of research. It didn't take that much research, but it took more time than I wanted to take out to do it. And basically this is how you do it. If I want to pull up Notability and Google Docs at the same time, you hold Google Docs and you bring it out. Then you click Notability, and then you can move Google Docs anywhere you want on your screen. So right now it's in the layover view that I like to call this the layover view. And then obviously I can swipe right, swipe down I mean, and then you get split view. So you can do this with a lot of different apps. Not all the apps support split view or the layover, but let's just try another one for fun. So let's do Mail and Notability. So I click Mail, I click Notability, and now bam, I can replace Mail or Notability with Mail, and so on. So it is possible. It takes a little bit of practice, But hopefully this makes a little bit more sense. Now, the other feature that I really loved about iOS 11 is the drag and drop feature. So if you look here, I actually put this picture of the brain in Notability using drag and drop. And it basically gets rid of the idea that you need a trackpad to copy and paste things. So let me show you how I did this. So if we go to Safari, I'll just open up as a floating window. I don't know what Apple is calling these, what the technical term is supposed to be for all these, for this floating window thing, but I just thought floating window was like a pretty good term. I'm sure, like I said, they don't want me to use the word window, but that is essentially what it is. Or a layover, I don't know what they want it to be called. So say I wanted to add a different picture of the brain. So I look up brain, and usually I don't have this keyboard, the on-screen keyboard show up because I'm using the smart keyboard. But if I search brain and then I go to images, great. This picture looks fantastic from Wikipedia. Those are always good pictures. So all you have to do is you hold it down and you see how it popped up like that, and then I can just drag it right into Notability. So I just want to put it right there, and then I can swipe out Safari from there, and then using Notability I can drag it whichever way I want. So I want this to go here, probably want that to go, or maybe I want the brains next to each other. Make that a little bit smaller, and then voila. So now I have two pictures of the brain in my notes. I actually don't want this picture of the brain, so I will delete it from my notes. But it's cool how you can easily do that. So that's an incredible feature. And now something else that I didn't think Apple would let us do, but you can, is you can multitask. So you can have split view open and have a layover window at the same time. So let me show you what that looks like. So right now, let me switch this. If I swipe to the right, Safari comes back. So that's a layover window. Now I'm going to switch it into split view to multitask. We'll just split it 50-50. Then what I'm going to do, or actually let's keep it here like this. I'm going to swipe up and then I'm going to pop messages right on. Oh my god, nope. That didn't work. Alright, give me 1 second. There we go. Okay, so if you didn't notice, the drag and drop feature is all the gestures you have to use can be a little bit frustrating, but when it does work, it's great, and when it doesn't work, yeah, it's a little frustrating. So it took me a few tries to do it, and it just could be because I'm warming up to iOS 11. But basically now I have split view, make this smaller, I have a layover window or a floating window right here, and I have a split view and a layover window. So that's really nice. So I'm not always using messages, right? Or I'm not always using Safari when I'm taking notes. So I can have the messages up there if I'm looking at a group chat really quick. Then if I do need to use Safari, I can just swipe it over and then start using Safari, find what I need, swipe it back over, and start typing. So it's really cool that you don't need a trackpad to do any of this kind of sort of complex multitasking use. In fact, aside from the little hiccups that I've been having right now, demonstrating this for you on the video, I have felt like multitasking and easily picking up apps I need to switch to is a lot easier to do on the iPad than it is to do on the Mac. For the most part, it's pretty intuitive and pretty useful, but it does have a little bit of its hiccups, and it has a little bit of a learning curve for sure, I think. One other thing that I wanted to talk about that's kind of related to the dock is multitasking in the control center. So I'm not sure how I feel about the way that they let us use the control center, because as you can see is if you keep swiping up, you get multitasking. Let me swipe the messages out of here. And you get your control center at the same time. Now, the reason why I don't like this is because, one of the reasons why I don't like this is because sometimes when I'm working and I swipe up too hard, and then it opens up multitasking, and then I'm frustrated because I have to click back on the thing I'm using, and then swipe up again to pull up the dock. So that can be a little frustrating, but once you get you kind of have to train yourself to stop your finger from going all the way up and to just swipe up a little bit. But that is kind of frustrating. But one thing that's definitely useful about this is that when you do swipe up and you get into multitasking, you can see here that it saved Safari and Notability as one window, right? It didn't separate them. It's showing me the multitasking that's going on right now, or the split view, whatever it's called. But you can see at the Safari Notability that those are blocked together essentially. So that's really nice because when I click back on it, it brings both of them up. It doesn't exit out of the multitasking at all. Now, one small nitpick, I don't like that when you're in the multitasking view and you're swiping up to get rid of an app, I don't like how the apps rearrange themselves. And let me show you what I mean. So if I swipe up Dropbox right here to close it completely, Docs moved up. Okay, that's fine. But if I swipe up Amazon, for example, on the right here, you're going to see the way things rearrange, and it's a little frustrating. It's kind of a minor complaint, but it is a complaint nonetheless. But if I swipe up here, Calculator moved up, Music moved down, Drive moved over, and Docs moved down. So now I'm kind of confused because what I'm used to doing in iOS, like on the iPhone, is just to keep going down in a straight line where nothing moves, right? So I can just keep swiping up. But now, the way things are moving, context just suddenly shifted to the left, and I accidentally closed apps that I wanted to keep open. Even though I'm trying to close apps really quickly, so I want Safari gone, I want Docs, if I want Safari gone, I want Mail gone, and I want to get rid of Drive. Why did Drive shift to the left when it should have shifted to the right? Or I was expecting it to shift to the right. Now, I'm not sure if this is just a personal problem, or if other people agree with me on this, but it was just kind of, it was like I was playing a game, like guess where your app is going to move when you want to close it. And I don't have time to play games when I'm in lecture, or when I'm working, or even if I do have time, I don't want to. I'm not here to play games, I just want to swipe up to get rid of things. I don't, because you're already draining my battery life with iOS 11. Sorry, so it kind of turned into a mini rant, but it was just a small complaint I had about the multitasking in iOS 11. Other than that, I do like that you can see like all the apps that you have open. Like you, instead of, you know how they're kind of like put on top of they're laid over each other on the iPhone. Here they're all spread out, so you can see each individual one pretty seamlessly, which is nice. And I will say one thing really quick before I go. iOS 11 didn't necessarily increase my productivity as much as I thought it was going to, and that could have just been false expectations on my part. But it definitely did. It did increase my productivity, I feel like, because it just makes working between different apps so much more seamless. But it just also made me realize how efficient iOS 10 actually was on the iPad. Even though it was really similar to what it was on the iPhone, the main features I feel like the split view and the multitasking, those were already there in iOS 10. The dock is obviously a great feature, and I know a lot of people are going crazy over the Files app. But to me, the Files app is really useless because it doesn't really serve a purpose for me. I mean, all my files are either on Notability or OneDrive anyway, so I didn't really need the Files app. It's nice for organization purposes, and it's definitely a significant jump in terms of the direction Apple is taking the iPad, I think, in terms of productivity, letting it replace your laptop. But one question I'm sure I'm going to get is, with iOS 11, can the iPad replace your laptop? And I still think the answer is no, until you can download applications from like online, or like if you're going on a website and you need to download an exe, or that's for Windows, or a DMG file. Until you can do something like that on the iPad, no, it can't. Or until we get those types of applications more prevalent on the App Store. No, the iPad I really don't think is a laptop replacement, a full laptop replacement. And then what I like to call it is a laptop supplement or a desktop supplement. So if you have an old computer and you just need a really portable device and you're wondering whether you should get a new laptop or a supplement, I would highly recommend getting an iPad as a supplement because, especially if you need to take notes, note-taking on the iPad is amazing. So that's about it. I hope this was useful. And yeah, let me know if it was useful, and give me some feedback. Like the video if you enjoyed what I said, and dislike the video if you disagree with everything I've said. But that's about it for this video, and I hope you liked it, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.